They've been,
Hi, Laura.
if she's going to Nebraska to do a camp, push it.
Hello.
May,
I was having
she did a
headaches.
camp in
Kim and Jim, I believe everyone is logged in now, so if you want to go ahead and get started, we could start whenever you're ready.
Hey, Laura. Bill, looks like it's not 5:29, so we'll wait one more minute here and then all meeting order. And I know, hey, Laura, Forrest is gonna be just a few minutes late. He's logging in on his phone, and then when he gets here,
Trying not to.
let him
take
in,
it
okay?
forever. Oh, you're fine.
He is already on the phone, so he's good to go.
Good, and then he'll be here in a few minutes, so.
Okay, I will stay by the door until he gets here.
Okay, good. Thank you. $5:30.
Going to go ahead and call to order the special board meeting of the Board of Trustees for Butler County Community College. We're here at the Danforth Board room. We do have Zoom. We have some people attending by Zoom. It's 5:30. We're going to go ahead and start up the meeting. The purpose of this special board meeting is to go into executive session and then to consider some presentation on higher learning commission discussion. I believe we have Mr. Tom Gordon Pritchard to assist us with that, and maybe some comments by our council right now. So at this point in time, I'd like to go ahead and have a motion to move into executive session for legal advice pursuant to attorney-client privilege not to exceed 30 minutes, to include trustees, President Kim Kroll, Ray Cannell, and Jim Robinson.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I would second it with you naming the time that we're going in and the time we're coming out.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip that? I apologize.
Well, you just
5:31.
said 30.
5:31, and we'll return in no more than 30 minutes. It may end up being less than
I
that.
thought I said not to exceed 30 minutes, but I did have oversight. My site's not too good today. I apologize for that. Anyway, so second?
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those same sign. Okay, motion carries. We're now moving into executive session.
Okay, I'm moving you into the room, so it might be a little bit after 5:31. Just let me know for sure once you're in there.
I'll watch the clock. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
I stared at that screen for 30 minutes last time.
Yeah, I know. It was like, I don't know, it was like 90 minutes one night, and I'm just like,
I wish I could show people something.
yeah, I know.
At that point, I would maybe
I'll second with the, I would like to second with the modification. I just want to find it. So 6 to 6:15.
As soon as, 20 minutes, as soon
It'll
as
be
we
20
get
minutes
it
at the
in.
time.
Which
Laura
we
has
switch
us
over.
in first, and then we'll
Or less.
record the time.
Or less. Are we out?
No, we're not yet.
We have-
Laura's gotta give me the, Laura's gotta give me the,
Yeah, I assume that we have a second, Val,
Oh,
second.
sorry.
I think Julie
Lance.
seconded.
Okay, well, there was sort of a condition there. We cleared that up, so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, then we're moving into executive session.
Okay, wait just a second. Laura's gotta give you permission.
Okay, I'm putting you back in into the breakout room, but can you tell me who made the motion?
Forrest.
Thank you.
Julie seconded.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
They have recessed back into executive session for a little bit longer. Once they're finished, we will continue with the meeting. Thank you.
Here comes Laura. Okay. Tom says he's waiting to get in, Laura.
If you can hear me, I think I'm on now.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. We see you. All right.
I'm right above the American flag, right in the center. I don't know what you see.
All right. We'll get started here in just a second, Tom. Thank you.
It says you're Phil Species. Oh, there you go.
Okay. You want me to, can I read this little statement, Jim? Is that okay?
Yes, if
Okay.
you wouldn't mind.
Just kind of an addendum to our virtual meeting message to the folks that are listening. And this is the one that I've read at each of the other meetings. I just won't read the information about public comment because we don't have any public comment on this agenda, special board meeting agenda. But during this declared time of emergency, we ask for your patience from all parties involved as we work through this virtual public meeting together. Agenda for this meeting can be found on the college's website at https://www.butlercc.edu. Prior to the start of the meeting, Lora Jarvis, the executive assistant to the president and clerk to the board, worked to take the role of those who joined the meeting in order to accurately reflect the attendees in the official meeting minutes. And I know that she also has been monitoring the meeting technology and will work during this meeting to make sure microphones are muted when people are not speaking, to eliminate background noise, and then will assist board members or others with technology needs. We exited, when the meeting came to order, we exited into executive session for some consultation with legal counsel and have now rejoined the open regular Zoom meeting, special Zoom meeting, sorry, and are here to have some comments, I think first from Ray, and then I'd like to introduce Dr. Tom Bordenkircher, and then we're going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Bordenkircher, I think. So we've got a number of the vice presidents and associate vice presidents on. When we adjourn the meeting, I think it'll be helpful for folks to do it. We'll do a roll call vote, Laura, if that's okay. And as you have questions, when we get to the end of Tom's presentation, if you have questions, please identify yourself for him so he can see, because I think with the fisheye, sometimes it's hard to see who's speaking. So anyway. Okay, you want to go first, Ray?
Sure, that's fine. Tom Ray Cannell, we spoke on the phone, and I appreciate you participating and sharing with the board the Higher Learning Commission's concerns about rules and regulations and compliance. Tom's a vice president with the relations. Butler Community College is a member of that commission, and that membership entitles the college to access to federal financial aid funds. And for that, we are appreciative. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, can I introduce
Yeah,
him?
I'll let Kim introduce you. I thought I did a good job. of that.
Yeah, you did an all right job, I guess. So anyway, Dr. Bordenkircher, we're glad you're here. Tom has been our liaison at the college for a number of years and is a great liaison for us, a good friend. He's the one that helps us if we've got questions or concerns, the one that really helps us oversee our accreditation process. And so anytime we have questions or we have concerns about something, he's the first person that we contact. He's the vice president of accreditation relations at the Higher Learning Commission, but has an amazing career in education, all the way from K-12 to higher ed. He's served in state and government leadership roles, policy and leadership roles. He's served on National Foundation in leadership roles and has really worked on specialized accreditations. And so we're anxious to hear from him. He's, I don't know how long he's been at the Higher Learning Commission, but I think for a number of years, and has been a great help to Butler. So thanks for taking your time to join us tonight, Tom. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Kim, for the opportunity. I don't get to do this nearly enough. And, it's good to see other faces than just my email that I have to answer all day in this COVID nightmare that we're in. I wanted just to once again thank you all for inviting me here. It is always a pleasure speaking to boards. I actually really enjoy the work. Sometimes I ask for it even when other liaisons don't particularly enjoy this part, I'll say, oh, let me do it. I really like talking to boards and explaining what our policies, what our processes are. I've done some work recently with some boards, and they've been so successful that I'll be going to the entire state of Nebraska to do all of the community college boards of trustees for their annual meeting this fall. So, I lead that only for you to know that there's a lot of information that boards need to know. There's a tremendous amount of work that you do. It's very difficult work. We're all appreciative of the work that you do naturally, but also for you to know that we are here as a resource too. So it's one of these unique roles that you'll have in higher education. Not many professions have this kind of role where a board does have the opportunity to call upon its accreditor and say, we want more information and we'd like additional training on this stuff. So I say all of that only because part of what I'm going to talk about tonight really centers around one small sliver of what we do here, of all of the criteria that we cover here at the Higher Learning Commission. So if you have interest in the future of exploring all of that, you have a lot of local resources, but I know sometimes it's often more interesting to hear it from some guy in Chicago or some guy outside of Kansas rather than just some people in Kansas all the time. I know I get a lot of pleasure from visiting different states and getting different perspectives. And every time I do this, I learn something new, which says I should continue working because it's still exciting and I still enjoy my job. With that being said, I want to just let you know what I am. I'm called a liaison. Yes, I'm one of the vice presidents, and yes, I answer directly to the president, who answers to the board of the Higher Learning Commission. The Higher Learning Commission is one of the regional accreditors in the United States. We are the largest. We accredit institutions in the region that extend from the tip of Pennsylvania all the way to California. Within that region, we have over 1,000 institutions that we accredit. The big comprehensives, the community colleges, the very private schools, tribal colleges, any kind of college you can think of that can meet our standards, we do accredit. We accredit the largest and the smallest in the nation too, which I find fascinating. And somehow these standards that I'm going to talk to you tonight about really can cover every kind of institution that we have within our regional geographic area. One of the things that I think is important for you to know is that my role with you, as Kim has said, is that I am here to be your resource. But it is a unique role, and I want to be clear in that we see ourselves as liaisons as two types of people, right? One is the coach, which I hope to do tonight, to coach, to help you, to answer questions, to guide you, to let you know what is expected from accreditors and from being a member of this accrediting body. But at the same time, I want to make it very clear, and so that it's all on the table, that I can also be a regulator. And that is important for you to know, because as much as I enjoy coaching, there is this other side that says, if you don't take my advice, or if you find yourself doing something that falls outside of our criteria, then I need to do my job. And I do my job. And unfortunately, sometimes I have to do that, and that's just part of the job. So I say all of that tonight so that you're crystal clear of what my role is, and hopefully we can maintain this role as this great relationship in which you see me as a resource and I continue to be your coach. But make no mistake that if I find out that there is behavior or things that I learn of which boards are not acting according to our criteria, that role can quickly go to one of regulation. And fortunately, my history with this institution has been such where we have not had to go there. In fact, my relationship with this institution is one where I actually point other people to come to because of all the great things that you do. And the reason I know that is because Kim has invited me to your institution, and I probably know people here at this institution from everywhere, from secretaries through faculty, through everyone else. A lot of people there know my name, and I have relationships with them, and I see them at conferences. So this is one institution in which I can clearly say I do have a great deal of understanding of who you are, what you do, the great things you do. And I do point people to you when I see other people struggling or when they are looking for ideas. Trust me, I have a great deal of respect for you. So my role here tonight very clearly is going to be based on the fact that I want to maintain that great respect. I want to maintain that great relationship with you. And I want to go through a couple things with you about accreditation and why this is important for us to talk tonight. One of the things that you need to know is that we have 5 criteria. The 5 criteria are divided between different operations of the institution. So the first criteria has to do with mission, and the board itself is very involved in that. Typically, institutions that have a mission inherit that mission through a variety of means. In some cases, it's through churches. In some cases, it's through the state. But in each case, that mission is critical, and it's very important to who you are and what you do. And we expect boards to make sure that they make decisions according to that mission. An example of that might be you're a community college, and if you believe that, if you state that your mission is to do technical education, and then I get a program request from you in which you want to do advanced placement courses and a baccalaureate in Latin, then I would say, not sure that fits your mission, right? The mission also drives the decisions you make financially. It also drives the decisions you make as a board when you're confronted with choices. And we expect that the board to make those decisions accordingly. The second area, which I'll get back to at the end, is called how the board interacts with each other and how the board promotes fair and equitable practices across the institution. That is number 2. Boards of trustees need to be quite cognizant of our expectations when it comes to criterion number 2. In fact, this is so important, I'm going to spend extra time on it because it specifically talks about governing boards and specifically addresses what we expect from all of you. Criterion 3, we do want you to know about it, but this is the kind of thing that you tell your faculty that they need to do and know how they need to behave in terms of how they interact with students. How do you maintain good instruction? Do you have data? Do you have people talk to you about how good the programs are there? And you have great programs. So you should be getting a lot of that information from the board level, but you in particular, that's not what we would ask of you on a typical basis, right? But we would want you to know that you're aware of it. You'd be able to talk about it. Criterion 4 has to do with assessment. This is a tough one. It's relatively new in terms of the expectations for all accreditors, new in terms of maybe 20 years, but we're getting there. It's one in which we want you to start thinking about how students are actually performing, what are their outcomes, what do boards of education know about how their students, how many stay, how many leave, what kinds of grades they're getting, how well they're doing in their jobs, These are the kinds of things we want you to be aware of. Obviously, we don't hold you to that. That's a lot of detailed work, and that's why you have people that work here to give you that information, right? And then the fifth one, which touches you a great deal, though, is we expect you to keep the books right. We want to see the books. We want to see the finances. You're expected to behave in a way that you understand who the external threats are to the institution. You're able to make decisions that are far in advance. And you're being challenged right now with COVID. You're being challenged right now with economics. You're being challenged right now as a board to look at your policies and practices. And we want to see how you do that. So when we come physically to campus every 10 years, and we ask for an update report on year 4, which is halfway through your 10-year reaccreditation, we want to make sure that you can show evidence that you're having that kind of dialogue, that you're talking about that, and that you're preparing for the future. This is one that a lot of places are having a hard time with, and I'm doing a lot of work with them, as you can well imagine. They don't know what their enrollments will be. It's very difficult to do the budgets. We're very concerned. We just had a Board of Trustees meeting. They were talking about that when I was observing that meeting today, and my bosses, this is hard times. These are really hard times. And we're here to help you the best we can. But this is the nature of where we are today, and we expect boards of education. I know you're challenged on this, but we expect you to make the right decisions for everyone based on your mission, based on your finances, based on the future, what we can see of it at least. Now let me go back to criterion 2. I want to talk about criterion 2 and go through it explicitly so everyone is really clear. Because after I leave today, hopefully, some of you will be able to talk about this fully and have deeper conversations about what I was saying and what criterion 2 is asking you to do. And these are things when you sign to be a member of our commission, you agree that you will follow these. So these are not state laws, they are not federal laws, these are things that you've already agreed to do. And we are a membership institution, and therefore we will ask you and hold you accountable to do that. So for criterion 2, the first one talks about integrity, ethical, and responsible conduct. This is lots of words, right? What this says on criterion 2 is that we expect you as a board to behave in ethical manner. We expect the board to do processes that ensure fair and ethical behavior on the part of not only yourself, but you also hold your administrators, your staff, and your faculty to the same standards by which you operate yourself. One of the things that we look for under here is that obviously, like I said before, you're holding to your mission. You stay with your mission and you are doing things according to what it is that you have adopted. The second piece under this, which I want to talk about, is that you operate with integrity. And integrity has to have a definition of which you define. You have a set of rules in how boards operate, and we expect you to operate within that rule base that says we are operating with this integrity on all of your financial, academic, human resources, and all other auxiliary functions. So it's not just one small area. We expect you to operate that way all the time. 2B under this function talks about the institution presents itself clearly, and that means that whatever you say to the public is clear, is true, it is accurate, and it represents fairly what is going on with faculty, staff, students, and the governance structure of which you operate. The next one that I want to talk about, which is extremely important here, and I hope I want to make sure I get the wording exactly correct. The governing board, which is who you are, right, of the institution, is autonomous to make decisions in the best interest of the institution in compliance with board policies to ensure the institution's integrity. So you have your own policies on how you behave. You have your own policies on how you communicate with one another, how you communicate with people in the community. We will hold you to those. We will look to see where are they and how are they functioning. And all board members function so that they understand that whatever it is they do, they are making interest in the best interest of the institution and in compliance with the policies that you have already set out to make. We expect that because we say board policies, we expect those board policies to be there for us to inspect. And that is important for you as a board to make sure that you're following your own policies. Let me be specific on what might that be. Number one, this might be regarded as the trained and knowledgeables. That's what we're doing today. So it says you are trained, you are knowledgeable, you understand going into this what it is we expect, which is why I'm doing trainings in other places that go into these in great detail. But just know for now, the reason I'm here tonight is to just talk to you about this particular one in great detail right now. And just know that we expect you to do what is required for you to understand what our standards are for being a governing board. Number two, the governing board's deliberations reflect priorities to preserve and enhance the institution. So we'll hold you accountable when we come in or any other time in which we find out that there's a reason for me to ask questions and to investigate. When we find out that the governing board is doing something or engaging in deliberations that does not enhance the institution, right? Because that doesn't help students. We want to make sure that you are doing those things that it truly do enhance the institution. One of the other things I want to make sure is that you understand we expect governing boards to be independent and you preserve the right to have undue influence on the part of donors and elected officials, and that you delegate day-to-day management of the institution to the administration that you hired to do the work. So that's extremely important as well, because that all falls under the understanding that you are behaving in an ethical manner, following your own board policies and procedures. 2D gets into the academic freedom. I don't believe we have issues there with that. I'm looking at academic freedom as freedom of expression, the pursuit of truth, and the teaching and learning. I think you could probably ask anyone in the faculty there saying that they feel free to do their work, and that it is that students are pursuing truth. And then on 2E, finally, it talks about the institution's policies and procedures call for the acquisition, discovery, and application of knowledge by its faculty, staff, and students. That means that when you have policies, and we expect you to have both policies and procedures, by the way, we are asking you that you promote discovery at the institution so that through ethical and fair behavior, you promote fairness on the part of students and understanding the importance of gaining knowledge and pursuing the discovery of learning. With that, I'd like to focus a little bit back on what I just said and pause so that we can talk. But I want to make it very clear, at the beginning of this, I talked about I have two roles. One is the coach, one is I'm here to help. I want this school to go well, to do well, like it is already. You're on the open pathway. But I'm here tonight because I'm here to understand that there may be some confusion as to our expectations of what it is we expect boards to do. And my role tonight is not to take you to the mat. My role tonight really is just to inform you and hope that this opens up a line of communication and that you are crystal clear about the expectations of the Higher Learning Commission and understand that we expect you to operate independently, to make your own decisions, to do what's right for students. But at the same time, it would be egregious for me to not share my role, for me to not introduce myself tonight with you knowing that you can call upon me when you have questions. You can call upon me to be there for you, to help guide, to help coach, but also understand I will hold you accountable for behaviors that fall outside of the realm of what we expect you to do. So with that in mind, I'd like to just take a brief pause right now and to see if you have any questions about what I talked about tonight, and very specifically about criterion 2 and how it relates to ethical behavior, and why I want to be present tonight to ensure that the board is very clear on what we expect the board to do.
Tom, this is Ray. What would the regulator do if you find that the board is not meeting your expectations? What are the sanctions? What are the penalties? What, besides training and trying to address those problems, what could be the ultimate outcome?
Well, because I have a good relationship with Kim and she asked me to come tonight, one of the things I wanted to do tonight is make sure that you are really clear on the fact that she believes this can work, and she wants me to take the lowest level right now and utilize the relationship we currently have so that it doesn't escalate. Because if she finds that anyone, including her board, is operating in a way that's against our criteria, it comes with consequences. So getting to your question, we go down the long road of what does that look like? What does it mean? And when it's accreditation, these are not decisions that are made quickly. That's part of the bad news, because once the ball starts rolling there, you have to keep it from rolling further. And that requires a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and a lot of public exposure. So let's begin with that. If you want to know what that looks like, and I don't want that, and I don't want it here, because I just love you guys, and I know we can work through any problems we have. So, but let's go to the dark side and say, okay, you know what, Tom, we've had it with you. We don't care about HLC. By golly, we're just gonna behave whatever way we want to, and I don't care. Go ahead, try to get me. And trust me, it's happened, and they usually come back and say, you know, well, I've rethought it. What will happen is that anyone has the right to write a formal complaint through our legal process that is on our website that anyone can find, a complaint to HLC. That can be a student, it can be a faculty member, it can be an administrator. I suppose it could be a board member. I've never had one from a board member, but I don't see why not, because it would indicate that we should start to look at something that any particular board member believes that might be there might be something that's going wrong in that criteria. So I just say that because maybe it's happened before, but it just hasn't happened in my tenure of 5 years here. But it has happened that I've had a president. It has happened that I've had a vice president, a provost. Those we take very seriously. If a complaint is made in between us coming, then we will investigate the complaint. And right now, like I said, I'm not here to come to the mat, but if I need to investigate the complaint, we will. And it will be at your expense, because that's the obligations of affiliation, right? So a complaint was made, we need to figure it out. We can, if needed, and we have sent an advisory team, a peer review advisory team that comes out to the campus and investigates the nature of the complaint. And however long that takes, it's usually a couple days, but if the nature of the complaint is deep, is large, then we spend what time we need. That group, that advisory group, then makes a recommendation to our internal group. I review that, and it's sent to our decision-making body. And at some point, the decision-making body may refer that to the board, which has happened before. And the board may do all kinds of things. The board has the option to request additional information, to hold a comprehensive review right then and there, to investigate it further, or to seek sanction against you and call you into a hearing. All of this at your expense, of course. And then ultimately we'll make a decision about the outcome, all that led from this particular allegation. And a decision can be made if it's not a good one. It can go to a sanction, and the lowest level of sanction is notice. The notice, of course, would become public. If it goes to a deeper sanction, it goes into a probation. That becomes very serious, because then you would have to not only notify the public, but also your students would have to understand that it's possible that if you don't correct this within a certain amount of time, usually 2 years, but it can be a variety, whatever the board would decide. If you don't correct it, then they have the possibility of not getting their degree. And then, of course, if the board still sees that you have not done that, they could take you to the next level, which is show us why you should remain accredited, which puts you on the defensive of having to demonstrate why this institution that we have seen not meeting criteria, and it can just be one criteria. It can be if it's egregious enough. And then it goes on to a final decision, and that could very well mean that the institution could lose accreditation. And when you lose accreditation, you would have to start again from the beginning to regain accreditation. But of course, the financial impact of that I couldn't even talk about, because then you get into heightened cash monitoring, you get into all government federal sanctions. You'll lose your specialized accreditation. It's dark, it's horrible, it's happened. Typically, when I've had institutions where it gets this bad, they generally withdraw and seek either bankruptcy, or they go on to merge with another institution or find some other way to discontinue operations. However, it can get there. That's the darkest scenario I can talk about, which I can't even in my wildest dreams see an institution of this quality and caliber and reputation ever even think of going there. The problem, and the reason I'm really interested in meeting with you tonight, is I don't even want to get you to level 1. I don't even want to get there. I don't want, whatever it is that's happening, we got to work it out. But we can't go against our policies. We can't go against the HLC expectations. And you have to keep that in light, because we don't want even the slightest indication that we can't do that together. And but like I said, that's not the part of job I like, but I'm required to do it. And if I have to go there, I will.
Thank you, Tom. It was our, and continues to be our expectation, that we honor and stay in compliance, but I needed to know what were the consequences in the event we don't.
It's pretty dire. Kim, let me let me ask you, is there anything that I have not covered in terms of talking about what the expectations are of a governing board, which is what you brought me in here tonight to do, making sure that everyone is crystal clear about focusing in on criterion 2. You know, by the way, you have Phil, you have other people here who do work for us, so they can go to that level to describe exactly what specific things are required for you to do. So I'm trying to give you the broad general, this is who I am, I'm your friend, let's keep that going, but just know I cannot ignore if I hear in any way, publicly or through a complaint or any other means, if I do hear that, then I have to follow up on it, and I will.
I appreciate that, Tom, and we have a good enough relationship with him, a long-standing relationship, that we can go to him and ask him these things and ask for help. And I think a lot of folks don't understand that whole accreditation piece and how important that is and how overarching that is and how required that is for us. And it's not anything that any institution wants to mess with. I mean, you want to maintain a strong standing of accreditation, and Butler has a relatively, a perfect history, I think, as far as accreditation, and I think we've been accredited for, since the 70s now, early 70s. And so it's just something that I want to make sure that our board understands, all of us, that we have to function within their guidelines, even though, it's our own policies that we follow, but we've got a bigger, more overarching guiding, guidance system that we're obligated to follow as well for our students and for everyone else. So I appreciate you. One of the things that I hope that, if other people have questions, of course, please ask, but I know for sure that me personally, I would like to have, some ideas from you maybe that you think would be helpful for us as we move forward, and to make sure that we're doing what you want us to do as well. So if you guys have other questions, be sure and ask, please, too, before we get to that.
Tom, this is Lance Leichenberg. And I guess most of us, I think with the exception of one, are in our first term as board members for the college. And I'd just be curious of what you see at other institutions, or what things that we may need to be aware of or potentially changing as we move forward over the next few months to try to improve the way the board operates and make sure we stay within those parameters.
One of the most important things that I think that even my boss would agree to is that, trust me, I can't even imagine what you guys are going through. I was never an administrator, a board member, or a faculty member during a pandemic. So right off the bat, you're dealing with things that are going to be emotional. This is about life and death. This is about the future of the institution. What will the jobs even look like? Are we preparing students to go out to work in a job that may disappear? We just don't know, right? When an institution goes through this kind of change, and we've had other things, 9/11, other things that I've been through that weren't quite like this, but I can tell you, the worst thing you can do as a board is to appear, even if it isn't true, but the worst thing you can do as a board is appear that you cannot seem to work to the best interest of the students and get along with each other well enough to have official disrespect and official respects when needed, and to work it through. This is hard, and you've got to respect one another. You've got to listen to one another, but you also have to trust one another. And that means you can't go out and share things with even your husband and wife. You have to keep it together. You have to show on the outside that you are working together as a board, because that's the expectation we have of you. I've served on boards, and sometimes I sit there and say, there's no way I can agree with what's going on. And I want so badly to just stand up and say, you're all crazy. But you can't. This is an obligation that you have taken on, and we expect you to work it out. And whatever it takes, it's going to be hard. But when you're a new board member, you come into things and you're still learning things. You're a seasoned board member, and you may be stuck in your ways. You all have to listen to one another, and you've got to get through this. But you cannot, under any circumstances, walk all over our policies, our expectations, and our demands that you maintain an ethical relationship while you do your decision making. And that's one of the biggest things, Lance, that I can give you tonight, is give yourselves a break. If you leave here and you say to yourself, well, you know what? Yeah, I feel like I need to get my word out, but I may have done this, that, and the other. Or the other ones say, you know, maybe we need to listen to each other more. Great. Whatever it takes, you do that, and you do it with respect for each other, and you get through this, because this is a great institution, but nothing's perfect, and everything's going to have to be fixed over time. And this is not going to be an easy job.
Thank you.
Other questions or thoughts at all? I don't know, Phil, Phil's on. I don't know, Phil, if you have some thoughts from our college end as our HLC person. You've got some great experience as a peer reviewer too.
Well, I would just say I am also available as a resource. I am a member of the Institutional Action Council for the Commission. So I've been operating within the Commission at a somewhat higher level than the typical peer reviewer, in that I'm a little higher up in the organization in terms of the decisions that are made about the status of programs and accreditation for different schools in terms of recommending things on to the board. So, you know, I'm around and I certainly know the criteria. So I'm happy to be available to talk to someone about specifics about the criteria. When you have questions that come up, you can certainly just contact me and I can explain to you my understanding about things with the criteria. And certainly I know to say, why don't we contact Tom and see what he says? Because there are issues that I have not dealt with and do not know about. I would say I have dealt with a couple of schools that were having difficulties with board dynamics, and it does need to be worked through. It can, at the very least, slow things down a great deal in terms of processes. And in one instance I was involved in, slow things down very unfortunately and very unnecessarily.
That's well said, Phil. This is the most critical time, right, for you all to make decisions tonight after I leave. What I hope you will do, and Kim, I'll get back to you to your question in just a minute, but I want to make sure that I didn't come here tonight to spank you around and go to the mat, like I said, to talk about rumors and innuendos, to talk about what I think you may or may not have done. My role here tonight is to say, let's start afresh. You now know me, and let's use me as the resource and Phil as the resource as you go through this. But know that this is serious stuff, folks. You know, if you violate something, if you violate a policy, a procedure, a law, an ethical behavior, if you violate something, and I hear about it, I will come, and it will escalate, and we don't want it.
Hey, Tom, this is Shelby Smith. I got a question for you.
Sure.
As a board member on the financial board, what should be my expectations when I ask for some financial data? Say if I specifically ask for, what is this satellite campus? What are its profits and losses, revenues? What are all the numbers? What should I expect to receive from that? Maybe you need to temper my expectations.
No, I mean, you're a board member. You should expect to receive information that's presented to you in a clear and meaningful way, right? So for some of us who understand finance really, really well, those kinds of people typically will look at audits and they'll get what they need from that. There's other of us that have no clue as to what all those words mean, but they do want to know how much is spent on this, how much is spent on that. Now, let me make it clear. You are allowed to ask for financial data because this is your school. You're on the board. But there's financial data. When you hear about it, you can't talk about it. You can't share it. You can't even discuss it with your family. Everything that happens in a board is your own stuff. So I hope I answered your question, but it sounds as though that you might have some frustration about the fact that, you know, some of that isn't available to you, or you don't know if you can ask. You can ask.
I've asked many times about many different things and haven't really been provided what I've asked for. So I'm just continuing to ask, but I don't know what my real expectations should be. So.
Well, that's fair. And Phil's hearing me tonight. Kim is with us in the room. And I think we need just to work on that.
Like one of my very first meetings, I asked for a specific number and the president said, I don't really want to give you that number without giving you the story behind the numbers. Mm-hmm. I appreciate the story behind the numbers, but I still need the numbers. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, from the way you said it, she said, I don't want to give you that without that. So respect that because you hired her. She's doing a really great job. So if she says, she didn't say, I won't give you the numbers. What you said was, I need to tell you the story that's behind that. And that context is important. And I would do the same thing.
But it's been several months and I still have no story and not the numbers. Exactly.
Okay, then that's fair. You're letting me know that there's an issue here with that. And I will talk, and Kim, you and I can talk about that later.
That sounds good.
Mary Martha, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Dr. Tom, this is Mary Martha Good. I'm a trustee on the board. Where would you suggest we start? Would you suggest developing a policy so information is not leaked like it was? I mean, do you give us guidance on that?
Absolutely. I can help you every step of the way, whatever it is you want, but you have a lot of resources already there. But when I've served on boards, and I'm still on a few, one of the things that always helped with me was you start with yourselves, you know, and you say, well, how is it that we're going to operate effectively as a board? We may not all agree on every item, but at the very least, start with our expectations and work from there. So one of those is you cannot talk outside, right? You can't share and engage in that kind of stuff. Start with our stuff and you may not need to go any further. Or you may say, you know what? I don't like when I'm ignored or when I'm talked down to or when I can't speak my piece or what have you. This is just normal human relations. But a good place to start, and which is why I brought it up tonight, was take Phil, ask Phil to come to you guys, sit around the table and say, let's start with criterion 2, and then we can build the expectation of how we operate as a board. And I'm so glad you brought this up because we didn't escalate this. We could have, right? But we didn't. And that's because this is unusual, but we can not escalate it. And let's go and build that kind of understanding of how we work together. And then you all have to monitor it for each other. You have to be able to someone has to go to you and say, you know, we agreed to this and you didn't do it. And if that doesn't work, then that's why you're meeting me tonight. If it doesn't work, I'll have to come and show up.
Thank you.
Kim, going back to your questions, I think you indicated to me that you wanted me to cover something, and I want to make sure I got it. Because as you know, I'm here as an invited guest, and I want to make sure that everybody gets what they need from my time tonight.
And so am I supposed to remember what I was gonna ask you?
No, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we covered it all.
Do you have, anybody have questions or comments? I feel
I
like,
have one
Ray
more
does,
question.
okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but-
No,
But Tom, I have a question. As a new board member, you want to be effective and you want to have the information. As Shelby noted, you asked for something and feels like you should have gotten it in a more timely basis. But once you're oriented and once you have, you know, the basic information about the college, should a board member ask every day for additional information that are sometimes time consuming, not only on the recipient of the request, but they've got to get a lot of other staff involved in order to address it. How do you make a new board member feel comfortable that they have the information and need to be effective without them not realizing that what they're asking on a daily basis is time consuming?
Right. So that gets back to the conversation I just had, which is you have to start building a relationship with each other that gets to that point. A new board member who asks these questions, there's an underlying reason for that, right? I don't believe it's just to make more work. I don't believe new board members come in to make people miserable. I really believe that new board members are coming in, and this is all very new, and there seems to be, there could appear to be an old guard and an old process, and they want to do the really best job they can, and they want to tell their constituencies, listen, I got it. I looked under every single rock, right? So you want to work with each other so that over time you build trust, and that new board member doesn't feel like, because I'm new, I'm not getting the information when I ask the question, and it seems like I'm not clear, or I don't trust what I'm hearing or seeing. And you have to be reasonable with that too, because they're trying to do their job. You know, it's a two-way street, and this requires relationship building, and coming together and talking about the major issues. Because when someone's continually asking for something, that means they just don't feel like they trust what they're seeing, and they're not getting what they need. And we need to find out, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? And within the context of how we operate. And that's only fair. I've been a new board member, and I've been a board member who has been on for many years. And every time new people come on, it's really important that we listen to each other. And but ultimately, you know, if we find, and if you appear, and the majority of the board appears that one or two board members is eating into time without a reason why, or it seems to be that there seems to be a problem here, then that's when you just need to go back to our criterion and see where that might be interfering, and remind the other board members you're free to do stuff up to a point. And once you cross that line, you're now coming into a problem with accreditation. And that from our training today should tell you, let's not go there. Whatever it is, we can work it out before it crosses that line and goes to the other side.
Thank you, Tom.
Other questions or comments at all from anybody? Well, Tom, I thank you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the great relationship that we have with you, and you know, the ability to email you and call you. And I think you've given us a great opportunity to have some conversation and figure out what we need to do moving forward. And I'll be back in touch to, you know, to stay in touch with you and keep you posted, and we'll be able to move forward, I'm sure. So.
Oh, I really want that to happen. And board members tonight, please know, I want to be that coach. I want the school to succeed. And we can get there, we can do it. And if it becomes stressful, just know that I hear you, I understand. And if you need me at any time, I'm here. Work through Phil and everybody, because there's a whole lot of resources out there to help you work through all of this. But if you go into this, and this is why there are some presidents who would never do this. They would never, the only time I come in is when I have a large stick, and then it's obviously sometimes too late. You have to respect the fact that we are all coming here together on our own time. Giving up you as board members and me in my role late into the evening, sitting here and talking about very difficult issues, and you're all just wonderfully polite and wonderful people. So I really appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you.
Thank you. We appreciate you, and we'll be in touch, okay?
Thanks all.
Stay safe,
Thanks.
stay
All
healthy.
right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice meeting everybody.
Good to meet you too. So, conversation, thoughts?
I appreciate the information. I mean, I guess I didn't, it's, the relational issues are important for us to work effectively, but candidly, I didn't appreciate that there were,
Forrest, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, Mary Martha, I'll speak up a little more, speak more directly into the mic.
Thank you.
I was saying, I appreciate that Dr. Kroll brought Tom into the loop here. We intuitively, you know, that you want to have good interpersonal relations with everybody and have productive conversations. I didn't appreciate that failing to do that had accreditation consequences, not just you go home after a meeting that was more stressful than it should have been.
Exactly. And as the president, my role and responsibility is to make sure we maintain solid accreditation standards. I have to. I'm obligated to that. And so, you know, the concerns over release of information out of executive session and those kinds of things, you know, I don't have any choice, because I know that that's a violation against our accreditation standards and our criterion. And so, you know, I visited with Phil, and, you know, Phil and I decided, because we have a good relationship with Tom, we can call him and say, what, you know, what do we do here, and how do we try and solve this? And so I think it's oftentimes people don't understand that, again, as new board members, or if you're not part of higher ed and don't understand those accreditation standards that we have to adhere to, you know, you don't think about those things. And so it's important for folks to know that, and know what, you know, if we continue to, I mean, we've got to continue down the pathway where we can talk to each other and work together and make sure that we do things the right way, because it's not he's serious when he talks about the fact that, you know, they'll come into colleges and you know, make it a little bit more difficult for us. And so we've got an opportunity to try and square this around and do things the right way, you know, moving forward. Because it's really, ultimately, it's about our students. And it's about creating access for our students and making sure that they're in an institution that's strong and solid, and that accreditation is important for us. So
So I think that there's some opportunity for us to continue this conversation and to figure out, what we need to do. It's obvious from Tom's perspective that, probably additional training if we feel like we need that. Mary Martha asked about, policy going forward. I think those are all things that, that we need to give some serious consideration to help us understand what the guidelines are and how we need to operate effectively as a board. Besides the communication and the trusting relationships and those sorts of things that have to happen as well. Yes, Mary Martha's raising her hand.
Dr. Kroll, I just want to know if we would like to contact Mr. Sperry, can we do that, or would you like us to go through you?
I can get you Phil's contact information.
Okay.
With Phil. I'm happy to do that, and Phil will let me, if you contact him, he'll let me know that you contacted him. That's another thing that the Higher Learning Commission expects. It's one of those expectations that they have, is that board members or whomever communicate through the president, or at least let the president know that you're talking to other folks on campuses. Phil's probably been involved in plenty of institutions where that's not happening, and the Higher Learning Commission doesn't like that. So, as long as I know, as long as Phil lets me know, or you let me know you're going to get a hold of him, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kroll.
Am I correct in saying that, Phil? I think I am. There have been Kansas colleges that have been in trouble because of those very things. So you're still muted, Phil. There you go. Oh, there you go. Oh,
Yeah, I have dealt with schools where that kind of procedure has not been followed in. And like I say, I haven't been through one of the worst situations, but I've been through situations where things just got twisted and slowed down, and it's just unnecessary. So it's better to be very above board and follow standard procedures. But I'd be happy to guide people towards resources and then talk them through the resources, because there's a great deal of information that's pretty accessible to understand how it would apply to our situation online that the commission has available.
Anything else, Ray, from your perspective?
No, I thought it was constructive. As I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I'd never really appreciated the importance of the accreditation to the college's ability to go forward. I remember, Jim, a number of years ago, they had a law school in Wichita. Garvey set it up, and students would work and then take those classes at night. And I thought, what a great deal. And then all those students who took those classes never were able to take the bar because that particular law school wasn't accredited, which emphasizes the importance of maintaining it.
Well, it just emphasizes what a club that really might have been at the time, because I was one of those students.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, yeah.
So we didn't
Yeah,
get,
President's Law School, yeah.
we didn't get accreditation because some powers that be that had more power than we did decided that we didn't need it, which is sad. I felt like that was the deal. Of course, I was a student trying to learn something and, really felt bad that we didn't get it. But it's important to have it.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's, I mean, I've learned through the process as well. I hope everybody has.
Yeah. Anything else? Jim, from your perspective?
I have one.
Your hand louder.
Got the hand waiver going. The latest case in Kansas happened at Garden City Community College last year, the last 2 years. And if any of the new trustees want to look, their accreditation was on probation. And what it did to the college out there was, it was just terrible. Just like Dr. Tom said, it's terrible what happens. The public starts losing trust. The kids start losing trust that they may not get their hours. So if you want any history, that would be a good source to look at what happened to them. Am I right, Dr. Kroll, that they did get off probation?
Yes, they are. I think, and Phil can help me here, I think Independence was on probation as well, maybe. There have been some Kansas schools that have been in that situation. And what?
Yeah,
you don't
Dodge has been in trouble.
Yeah, Dodge has been in trouble. There's a whole lot of work that you have to go through to gain back those steps of, being in HLC's good graces. Lots of report writing and lots of visits and, things like that, but, you're exactly right.
My comments are basically that I've been on the board for almost 7 years, and I was aware of the accreditation process and how it works, but not of the investigative triggers and really the sanctions. So it was a very educational presentation. I was glad that you got Tom to join in, and
Thank you.
yeah, very, very, very good.
And I think we're all pro college here, and we know the college, so having that information too is nice to know.
I can't hear you, Shelby.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What did you say?
We're all pro college here, and I
So we're
agree.
all pro Butler Community College here, and it was nice to get that information tonight. I don't think anybody's here to hurt the school in any way.
Well, if there is any further discussion or anything.
Mr. President, can I make a motion to adjourn, please?
Look at you, beat me to it.
Second.
There you go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same
You
sign.
just want your name in the minutes. That's
We're
No.
adjourned.
Shelby. Yeah. Lance, Julie?
Thanks, everybody.
You're fine, right? You're welcome. Thank you.
I see a lawyer, I just see a meter spinning.
Yeah, I see that meter above his
Should
head.
have made this meeting a
Beep,
little
beep,
longer.
beep.
Around for the next half hour.
We're not paying you for the last 30 minutes. You stayed because you liked us.
It did. I won't charge you for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ray, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ray.
I hope you get your eye figured out.
That me too, it's a mess. Could be a career answer, I may just hang it up.
No.
I'm dead serious, I'm talking to my partners about it.
Really?
Becomes too much of an impediment, I'm done.
Well, can you work on cars with one eye?